As he and his wife drove down the two-lane highway leading to the southernmost part of their native island, Ram Kane enjoyed the sensation of the wind tousling his thick, black hair. Scattered across the South Pacific Ocean, the group of islands known as Cathay was home to 1.5 million indigenous people and another 100,000 foreigners, mainly from the United States. The largest of these islands measured about 40 miles from end to end. The people of Cathay had their own administration, police, and military because they were a sovereign nation. The country had a monarchical past but had since established a democratic government similar to that of the United States. The president served a single 5-year term, and representatives were elected every 2 years. Over 70 years ago, the country's former monarch, believing it was time to modernize the population, launched an ambitious modernization campaign. As a result, today's people of Cathay had access to the internet and all other conveniences of a modern society. Fortunately, the people retained most of their traditional beliefs, and the nation maintained the lowest divorce rate in the world, surpassing even India's record of 1%, according to some reports. Except for the mysterious glowing rocks dotting the slopes of Mount Asani, the sandy beaches, and the locals' warm hospitality, Cathay offered very little to potential conquerors. So far, it had managed to avoid the embarrassment of foreign control. It was so far south that the Japanese didn't even consider Cathay during World War II, not believing it would help them conquer the Pacific. Ram appreciated this place because it was his birthplace and where he spent his formative years. He decided it would be a good day for a drive, thanks to the altitude, which kept the temperature just right and the humidity manageable. But he was sad and furious about the reason for the drive. He glanced over at the woman sitting next to him. Her name was Marion. In his opinion, she was an impressive Californian beauty with smooth, supple skin, blonde hair, firm breasts worthy of worship, and legs made for sex. She wasn't just his wife, she was the object of every man's wildest dreams. With just over an hour left to reach their destination, he reflected on their shared history. 6 years ago, when he accepted a teaching position at the local campus of a U.S.-based institution headquartered in Washington, D.C., he had just finished his Ph.D. and planned to return home. That's when they met. The local university offered him the position and welcomed him with open arms. He adapted effortlessly, and his passion for education became evident in his work with the local youth. She was an admissions counselor at the university's office. They met at a social event organized by the university president, hit it off, dated for a year, and then got married. Tragically, her parents had died in a car accident a few years earlier, leaving her as the sole survivor. He didn't know of any other relationship she might have had. Curiously, she wanted a traditional Cathay wedding. He found it strange since most local women preferred non-traditional weddings. At first, he questioned her about it, thinking she might be patronizing or perhaps not fully understanding the significance of her request. However, she was quite insistent on having it. She then taught him the correct pronunciation of the words and provided him with a text file containing the chant he would need to recite during the ceremony. He had basic knowledge of the language, enough to get by in the markets, but not enough to understand the complexity of the vows he was making. It was a beautiful ceremony. Marion, dressed in a short white tunic, knelt towards the end and picked up the pillow beside her. She presented it to him while flawlessly reciting the traditional phrase. A simplified version of the phrase would be, "I submit to you, my husband, in body, mind, and spirit." The broader original meaning of the phrase had been lost long ago, except to the oldest and most traditional members of society. She firmly grasped the SIBA that rested on the pillow, a traditional weapon carried by husbands as a warning that they were off limits and ready to die to protect what was rightfully theirs. The family seal covered the elaborately decorated hilt, an example of Marion's skilled craftsmanship. He loved it, just as she had once anointed it with her own blood. He took the knife in his hand and cut the ties of her tunic, letting it fall to the ground, and then repeated the spell. Her exposed body remained still. He then lifted her and laid her naked on the wedding altar. When they both reached the height of pleasure, he approached and, under the watchful eyes of all, consummated the marriage on the altar. Here, the bride would traditionally demonstrate to her family and neighbors that she was pure of heart and worthy of her new husband. When he helped her down from the altar, they walked down the aisle to their car. They returned to the U.S. after their first night on the island and spent a honeymoon week in Las Vegas. What followed were 3 fantastic years as Ram and Marion continued their studies at the university, enjoying their free time making passionate love. It was the best life had to offer, he thought. Meanwhile, Marion was transferred to the main campus in Washington, D.C. So he also requested the transfer, hoping the university would give him the opportunity to teach in the nation's capital. They moved to Washington when the board approved his transfer. Marion showed him around the city since she had lived there before he arrived in Cathay, but she had no idea he had spent several weekends there attending university. In the following 15 months, numerous changes occurred in their lives. Working more than usual, traveling, and attending social events where she mingled with the rich and famous became part of Marion's new job description. Occasionally, Marion would take him to these gatherings. He felt like a token or, worse, like an exhibit, a zoo animal that locals gawked at, even though she told everyone he was her spouse and a professor. He often felt uncomfortable and irritated by the condescending way people addressed him. Some even spoke slowly and loudly, as if he were an invalid who didn't understand English. He had to restrain himself from punching someone several times. Following a recent incident, he remembered a conversation he had with Marion, asking about her well-being. She spoke as he removed his expensive suit. "No, I'm not," he growled in a low baritone voice. She asked, "What's wrong?" and continued probing, "Did someone say something bad?" "It's the way they said it," he informed her. Remember that scene from The Outlaw Josie Wales, where the character played by Chief George talks about his encounter with Abraham Lincoln at the White House? She gave him a thumbs up, saying, "Yes, I remember." "I get what he was saying," Ram told her. He continued, "It's almost like these people think that because I'm from the Pacific Islands, I should have a bone in my nose and be wearing a loincloth." She firmly replied, "Well, you'd need a pretty long one," while patting his groin. He chuckled. "Don't they realize I was top of my class at Harvard?" she asked. "They don't know how hard I worked to pay for my education and not be a burden or carry a heavy debt," she replied. "No, I don't think they do." "Well, I don't like people you have to bend over backward for," Ram commented, "and I sure don't like being displayed like a zoo specimen." She added, "It's all part of the game, but I understand how you feel. You don't have to attend these things if you're uncomfortable, you know." He shrugged, "You're my wife, and I should be there to support you," he replied. "Besides, I don't like the idea of someone else accompanying you. By the way, what's up with that new boss of yours, Jack Hamilton?" When Ram first saw Jack that afternoon, he disliked him immediately. "He's from New York, really a sweet guy once you get to know him," she commented. "It seems like he's developed feelings for you," Ram remarked. Watching Jack's closeness with Marion throughout the night was impossible to ignore. Sometimes, he wondered if they were too close. "Aren't you jealous?" she inquired, smiling. He hugged her with his large arms. "Of course I am," he said playfully, "but he knows you're married, right?" She continued, "Yes, he knows," while hugging him comfortably. "Good," he said. They ended the night making love, but he couldn't shake a horrible feeling. He hoped she remembered that Jack Hamilton needed his close supervision. During the next 6 months, everything rapidly fell apart. Marion was sent out of town multiple times by Jack, and she started working significantly later at night than before. Their sex life essentially dried up because she was too exhausted to do anything. Ram was reviewing student files when everything came crashing down. A knock on the door stopped him in his tracks. "Come in," a voice called out. A small brunette poked her head inside when the door opened. She spoke after adjusting her glasses on her nose. "Dr. Kane, do you have a couple of minutes?" she asked. Though he didn't remember her name, he recognized her as one of the women who worked in Marion's office. As soon as he motioned for her to enter, she did. "Please, come in," he urged. She entered his office and stood in front of his desk. "And please, call me Ram. My students call me Dr. Kane, but you're obviously not one of my students." "What can I do for you, Miss Harper?" he asked softly. "April Harper. I work in your wife's office," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Of course," he agreed. "What can I do for you, Miss Harper?" Well, she started to tremble. "I'm not sure how to say this." "I think it's best to just speak your mind," he encouraged her. "Yes," she nodded slightly. "Well, it's about your wife and Mr. Hamilton," she said, immediately capturing his full attention. "I'm a bit embarrassed to say this since it's pretty personal, but I think what they're doing is wrong, and I thought you had a right to know. I mean, unless you already know and are okay with it. I know some people are into that kind of thing." "What kind of things, Miss Harper?" he asked, his voice tightening. "What are they doing that bothers you so much?" Well, it seems like they're having an affair, she observed, her face flushing red. Are you absolutely sure about that, Miss Harper? He asked. That's quite an accusation. They go out for lunch almost every day, she pointed out, and their lunches tend to last longer than normal. They take trips together all the time. He buys her flowers, and it's pretty obvious from the way they interact that it's more than just a professional relationship. Besides, all the girls in the office are talking. Mr. Hamilton has quite a reputation, even though he tries to keep everything hush-hush. I see, Ram responded. Have you personally witnessed anything that suggests they're having an affair? Have you seen them kiss or do anything inappropriate? Yes, she confessed, anxiety lacing her voice. I saw them kiss as they left her office. After she finished speaking, he nodded sharply. Tell me, Miss Harper, how often does Mr. Hamilton make you all work late? She shook her head. He generally doesn't make us work late, she replied. The university is very strict about that. Marion and Jack sometimes stay late, but the rest of us usually don't. The only time we work late is when we're preparing for graduation or student registration, but even then, we get time off to compensate. They hate paying overtime. I see. Have you told anyone else about this? He asked. No, I haven't told anyone, she replied. I wanted to talk to you first. We all like Marion, and we don't want her to get into trouble. But it's still unsettling. If the dean or the president found out, it would be a huge scandal. Indeed, it would, Ram agreed. Thank you for bringing this to my attention, Miss Harper. I'll take it from here. Thank you, Dr. Kane, she said as she excused herself. When she left the office, Ram pulled up a Word document on his computer. He had been compiling a list of private investigators and divorce attorneys, although he had hoped he wouldn't need to use it. Suddenly, he felt compelled to act. He would have to divorce her if she was unfaithful as claimed. With a quick motion, he dialed a number. When Marion texted him that same day to let him know she'd be working late, he wasn't surprised. As he nibbled on his food, he pondered what his wife and Jack were doing in the dining room. At some point, he headed to the master bedroom. After dumping the leftover lasagna down the garbage disposal, he put on his pajamas and lay down on the bed with the TV blaring. He woke from his stupor when he heard Marion enter the room. She leaned in and kissed him on the forehead. He could almost smell the aftershave in her freshly shampooed hair. Her apology seemed sincere. I'm sorry it took so long to get out of there tonight. I grabbed something to eat on the way home, she said as she disappeared into the bathroom and emerged in flannel pajamas, signaling they wouldn't be having sex tonight. Not that he was interested in sex with her after her time with Jack. Ram mentioned that she had been working late frequently. How much longer is this going to go on? He asked. It's hard to say, she replied. Jack's had the whole department working overtime. He stayed up late, and when he heard her betrayal, a surge of anger washed over him, but he managed to calm himself down. The entire department, he inquired. He thought the university generally disapproved of overtime. She confirmed, yes, but there's a big meeting coming up with some important donors, and we have to be prepared. Oh, that reminds me, we're going to New York on Friday. We'll leave before lunch and be gone for the weekend. That's not much notice, he remarked. Thursday morning was coming up quickly, or rather, it was today, considering how late it was. That's why we're working so much now, she explained. I'm sorry, I'll make it up to you. As she rolled onto her side, he mumbled, okay, even though he knew it was all lies. He still wanted to let her hang herself. Later that day, Jack visited Ram in his office. He entered before Ram could answer the doorbell. Watching Jack's ever-present smile, Ram looked up. What can I do for you, Mr. Hamilton? I just wanted to stop by and apologize for monopolizing your wife's time, Jack declared. I'm sure you've heard the rumors, and I just wanted to assure you that nothing inappropriate is going on. I don't put much stock in rumors, Mr. Hamilton, Ram responded. I deal in evidence and facts. I truly hope nothing inappropriate is happening, for your sake. Jack's smile faltered for a moment. He was surprised by Ram's reaction. In his experience, academics were usually weak. For some reason, Jack felt unsettled by this man. Maybe it was Ram's enigmatic expression, not the tone of his voice. Nothing about Ram suggested weakness, and Jack briefly considered abandoning his intentions toward Marion. Clearly not, Ram continued. By the way, did Marion mention that you'll be in New York this weekend? Yes, Ram said quietly. He deliberately refrained from allowing Jack to use his first name, as he harbored strong feelings against the man. I must admit, she gave me little notice. I was planning on taking her out Friday night. Lately, she's been spending more time with you than with me. Once again, Jack apologized for the situation. It's our job, it never ends, you know. With a slightly sardonic tone, Ram asked, when do you think I might get to spend some time with my wife? Very soon, Jack assured him. Jack slid out of the office, and Ram watched in silence as he said, we have some things to take care of. Look, I have to go. It's been a pleasure talking with you. When Jack left, Ram made another phone call. He wasn't startled or surprised by the text message his wife sent him that afternoon, informing him that she'd be working late again to prepare for the weekend meeting. He had expected it and had also received a similar message on his own phone. He made a stop for dinner on the way home, all the while feeling the weight of the lies and deception. The phone went to voicemail when he tried to reach Marion at her office around 8 p.m. He left a message and then dialed Jack's office. He received the same response, no answer. Without leaving another message, he reread the text he had received earlier while examining the attached images. When Marion returned later that night, he was still glued to his computer. You're still awake, she asked with an increasingly critical tone. Did you eat anything? I stopped for dinner on the way home, he replied. I'm sick of the lies. I'm sorry, she said. We were going over everything one last time for the meeting. So, you were in your office, he asked. Yes, where else would I be, she responded. Tell me, he remarked, I called your office at 8, but there was no answer. I also called Jack's office. We were in the conference room and didn't hear the phone, she said. That was complete nonsense since he was familiar with the layout of her office. Even if that were true, she should have seen the message light indicating someone had called. Even so, you didn't notice I left a message, he asked. I didn't even check, Ram. I'm sorry, she admitted. By the way, Jack told me you were a bit short with him today. And what's this about a Friday night date? You never mentioned that to me. It was supposed to be a surprise, he said. I guess it doesn't matter now. This is important, she assured him. No, it doesn't matter, he firmly replied as he limped upstairs to the master bedroom. I'm going to bed, Marion. Good night. He wondered how much longer he could tolerate the lies before he put an end to it. She tried to cuddle up next to him under the covers, but he said nothing. Ram, I love you, she murmured softly. In response, he let out a grunt. I love you too, Marion, he whispered, with a hint of melancholy in his voice. Good night. She pulled away, understanding his coldness. He ignored the faint sounds of her weeping from her side of the bed. The next morning, before leaving, he cornered her. Can you at least tell me where you'll be staying and keep in touch with me over the weekend? He asked. Of course, she said before giving him the details. She wrote down the hotel name and room number. After saying, thank you, he folded the paper and put it in his pocket. He turned to leave, but Marion stopped him. Have a good trip, she said in a small voice. Then she added, Ram, what's wrong? You haven't been yourself lately. Have I done something to make you angry? He laughed, believing she already knew the answer, and replied, you tell me. He left without giving her a goodbye kiss, which made her pale. I love you, Ram, she said as she buckled her seatbelt. That's what you've said, he responded before getting into his car and heading to work. The damage was done, but he still hoped she would see the light and reconsider her plans to go to New York. Based on the investigator's report, he already knew the meeting was an elaborate ruse by Jack to spend the weekend alone with her. But unfortunately, Jack and Marion left for the airport during lunch, and he wasn't informed of their arrival at the hotel until much later. For the rest of the weekend, he had no communication with her. However, he received updates from the investigator about the couple's whereabouts. The reports he read described a wild weekend filled with sex, dancing, drinking, and outings to local nightclubs. Seeing the images of them in bed made him so angry that he nearly slammed the door. It was impossible to ignore that Jack wasn't using any protection, and Ram didn't know if Marion was still on birth control. He thought about his options. Divorce was the obvious choice for him, but he also knew from conversations with colleagues that spouses almost always lost in American divorces. An idea occurred to him, and on Sunday, he made some calls to other countries. When Marion returned home Sunday night, he was already in bed. Her usual routine included a kiss, a hug, and a tumble in the sheets when she returned from one of these trips, but that wouldn't happen now. He didn't even help her bring her bags inside. After putting her things away in the closet, she changed into pajamas and got into bed. She reached out to kiss him, but he turned his head to avoid eye contact. The following morning, he left the house early without saying a word to her. During his lunch break, he called his investigator to get an update on Marion's activities over the weekend and followed up with more calls throughout the day. Marion tried to contact him by phone and text, but he ignored her. That night, Marion passed by him in the house without saying anything. After dinner, they crossed paths in the living room. Something was wrong, so she asked, "Ram, what's going on?" He stared at her before replying, "You haven't spoken to me since I got home. Don't you want to know if we were successful?" "Surely you got what you wanted," he said. "What do you mean by that?" she inquired. He pulled out his laptop and showed her a video of her having sex with Jack, playing the footage for her. Her eyes flew open in shock. "Oh my God, this feels so good with you," Marion gasped. "Is it better than with the brute you're married to?" Jack asked. "Please, you know I don't like it when you talk about him that way," she said. "He may be a savage, but he's a good man." Jack's response was pointed. "Then why are you here with me instead of him?" "You know why," she replied. "Yeah, I know," he said, wrapping her in his arms. "Now, let's go again." Ram shook his head in disgust as he closed the video and shot Marion a cold look. When he paused the footage, she asked, "How did you get that?" Instead of answering, he said, "What does it matter? What I'd like to know is why." "Ram, it was just sex, nothing more," she claimed. "It had nothing to do with you. You know I'd never hurt you." "You did," he replied. "Tell me, dear wife, I noticed Jack didn't bother using protection. Were you planning to get pregnant by him and pass the child off as mine? By the way, didn't you consider the risk of catching something?" Marion looked stunned as he continued, "According to my report, Jack has at least 2 other women he sees regularly, not to mention his frequent one-night stands." "He told me he was clean," Marion said defensively. "And of course, you foolishly believed him," Ram shot back. "After what you've done, I can't keep working here. I've requested a transfer back home. I've already spoken to the chancellor, and he agrees it's for the best. He also agrees that both Jack and you should be fired for blatantly violating university policy." "Where are you leaving?" she asked quietly. "At the end of the term, which is this week," he replied. "We're leaving Friday." "And us?" she asked. "There's no us anymore," he informed her. "You killed that. The divorce will be finalized when we return. Jack and you will need to be there. After that, I don't care what you do." "Why does Jack have to be there?" she asked. "Why do you think? He's the one you were cheating with. The order's already been given. He can either leave peacefully on his own or be extradited." "Extradited?" she asked, shocked. "Isn't that a bit extreme?" "You forget that the nation of Katai has an extradition treaty with the United States," Ram explained. "Jack has no choice but to be there, one way or another. He gained dual citizenship when he married me." Ram stood up, signaling that their conversation was over. Marion was taken aback by the sudden turn of events. Although Jack had assured her that Ram wouldn't find out, he clearly had. She pleaded with Ram, "Please, I don't want a divorce," her voice filled with emotion. He stared at her for a few seconds, then asked, "Why did you do it? Was I not good enough for you?" "You're amazing," she proclaimed. "Then tell me why," he insisted. "Well," she began hesitantly, "Jack and I met in college. He was my first, and I guess I fell in love with him again." "I guess the old saying is true," Ram replied. "What saying?" she asked, confused. "It's a version of that Bible passage that says there's a time for everything," he explained. "A time to cheat and a time to die." "What do you mean by that?" she asked, alarmed. "Are you saying there's no hope for us?" "When you cheated, you killed our marriage," he pointed out. "You killed what we had. I hope it was worth it." Things only got worse for the rest of the week. For violating the university's fraternization policies, the chancellor summoned Jack and Marion to his office and fired them both. He then handed Jack a document that had been emailed the day before. "What the hell is this?" Jack yelled, furious. "It's a summons from the Kingdom of Katai," the chancellor announced. You're required to attend Dr. Kane's divorce proceedings. I've been told that if you refuse to go, you'll face extradition. A plane ticket is being sent to you by express mail. Security will meet you there. This is bullshit. Jack exclaimed. Maybe so, the Chancellor responded. However, the State Department has assured me it's all legitimate. They've decided to remain neutral. Now, both of you, please gather your things and leave my school. Marion felt a wave of desperation and humiliation wash over her as she retreated to her desk to collect her belongings. But Jack had another plan and headed straight for Ram's office. Ram was sitting in his office grading papers when Jack burst in, visibly agitated. Ram put down his pen as Jack stormed in, yelling, "You bastard!" Jack was ready to strike the larger man, but Ram simply reached out and grabbed Jack by the throat, ending his reckless outburst. Shaking his head, Ram rose over Jack, who was now on the floor, struggling to catch his breath. "Get out of my office," Ram ordered calmly. "I don't want to see you again." The rest of the week flew by. To avoid talking to Marion, Ram did everything he could to stay away from her. Marion made several attempts to win back her husband's affection, but he mostly ignored her and left the room whenever she started crying. The movers arrived on Wednesday, packed up everything, and prepared it all to be shipped back to Katai. A for sale sign had already been put up by a real estate agent. When Ram and Marion finished cleaning the house and taking care of their affairs, they checked into a motel and slept in separate beds. Although it was hard to resist her charms, he stood firm and didn't give in to her advances. On Friday morning, they took off. Once they were settled into their rooms at the Marriott Hotel, Ram made some phone calls and found out that Jack was on his way to the island, having already left the United States. He also learned that the trial was scheduled for Monday and that the special force of the National Police, known as the King's Guard, had detained Jack. It was a tough weekend for both of them. Marion stubbornly tried to convince Ram to reconcile, but he was unwavering. "We need to find a way to get through this," she said, shaking her head. He looked at her and said, "No," with a chilling tone. "You disrespected me in the worst way a woman can. You made your choice, and now you have to live with it." "I swear it won't happen again," she pleaded. "Please, Ram, I love you." "And I loved you too," he confessed. "But what good are your promises anyway? Remember the vow you made to me when we got married? You didn't keep it. So how can I trust you to keep any other promise? Wouldn't it be worth considering counseling?" she asked desperately. "Please, Ram, I didn't mean anything by it. I didn't want to hurt you." "Silence, woman!" Ram shouted, jolting Marion out of her stupor. At 4:30 a.m. on Monday, he woke Marion up and said, "You meant everything to me. Damn it, you pledged yourself to me and only me, just like I pledged myself to you. I kept my promise to you, but you broke yours to me. Now it's time to face the consequences and move on," Ram said, waking Marion up so early that she was surprised. "Why did you wake me so early?" she asked, confused. "It's time to get ready," he declared. "You should eat something before we go. It's going to be a long day." "But the courthouse isn't far," she pointed out. "It's only a few blocks away, we can walk there in less than half an hour." "We're not going to the courthouse," he informed her. "Where are we going then?" she asked, anxiety creeping into her voice. "To the inactive volcano on the southern tip of the island. It's called Mount Asani," Ram explained. The peak of the mountain collapsed during its last eruption over 2,500 years ago, creating a massive fissure in the earth that the islanders came to revere as a sacred place. His words began to sink in as she tried to process them. "You were the one who wanted a traditional marriage. I think it's only fair that we have a traditional divorce," he continued. "What?" she gasped. "You don't mean?" "Yes," he confirmed. Marion, startled, jumped out of bed and rushed to the bathroom to get ready. Ram added, "Now hurry up. We have plenty of time to eat before we head out." She knew well the folklore of Mount Asani and its legends. For a long time, it had been a place where marriages were dissolved through civil rituals. Unfortunately, death was a common outcome of those rituals. She doubted he would go that far. After changing clothes, Ram put a duffel bag in the trunk of their rental car and accompanied her to breakfast. As usual, he devoured his meal, while she barely touched her plate, her nerves getting the best of her. She reasoned that the old stories were just that, stories. Yet, it would take them over an hour to reach the peak at the southern tip of the island. Looking out the window from the passenger seat, She felt like a criminal being led to the gallows. They finally reached their destination. When they arrived at the parking area, Ram turned off the car after leaving the winding two-lane road. He opened the door for Marion, grabbed their things, and got out. "Let's go," he whispered softly. Marion slowly emerged from the car, tears welling up in her eyes. Her legs gave out as she stood, but he helped her up and pointed to the old stone steps that would take them to the top of Mount Asani. "Climb the steps," he instructed. Fearfully, she began the arduous ascent, thinking of the countless others who had made the same journey in ages past. 2 uniformed men from the King's Guard awaited them at the top. As they looked around, they noticed several high-ranking members of the Katai people seated in a semicircle in front of the massive rock slab that jutted out over a deep chasm, once the caldera of Mount Asani. There was a stream of molten rock at the base of the peak, and she knew it was at least 5,000 feet deep. The King's Guard stood by, watching from an improvised platform. Large flags fluttered in the wind. Inside the enclosure was a high-ranking Katai elder dressed in traditional attire. Marion gasped as she recognized the figure. She turned to Ram and asked, "The king?" "Yes," Ram replied as he turned to the guards. "It's my father's brother." "Prepare her," he instructed. He went to another tent and donned his traditional robe. As he watched them lead Marion to the platform, he thought of his SIBA and recalled the day Marion had gifted it to him on the beach. He had hoped it would remain unused forever. Returning outside, he fastened it to his belt. By then, Marion was already dressed in a short red tunic and was being led to the platform. Standing on the platform with her legs and arms tightly bound, Marion noticed that Jack was already there. The guards had warned him to stay silent unless spoken to, so he wasn't particularly happy. Ram knelt before the pergola and bowed humbly to his uncle, who nodded in his direction. He then positioned himself before the semicircular court assembled before the slab. "Prince Ram Kane," proclaimed the elder in the center of the semicircle, "this court has reviewed your request for divorce. We have also examined all the evidence and determined that your case is valid. Based on the evidence, your petition for divorce is granted. Do you wish to address those who have wronged you before executing the final sentence?" "Yes, Elder," Ram replied. Ram knelt before the judge and then turned to face Jack and Marion, who were now tied to the platform. "Proceed," the elder commanded. Terrified, Marion could feel her fear growing. In contrast, Jack was as arrogant as ever, completely unaware of what was about to happen. "What the hell is going on?" Jack demanded as Ram approached them. "Shut up," Marion ordered Jack. "Are they going to sacrifice us to their volcano god or something?" he asked. "You're an idiot," she replied. Ram interjected, "It's over." Neither of them responded, their eyes distant and defeated. Ram looked directly at the woman who would soon be his ex-wife. "Do you remember the promise you made to me on the beach 5 years ago?" he asked. "I remember," she replied. "Do you fully understand the nature of the vow we made to each other?" he pressed. "Yes, I do," she murmured, her voice firm but resentful. Ram bowed his head, realizing she had rejected his offer of an escape. Had she been unaware of the seriousness of their marriage vows, it might have been different, but she had sealed her fate by admitting otherwise. "What promise?" Jack asked, bewildered. "What promise?" Marion wanted a traditional Katai marriage, part of which requires the couple to pledge their mind, body, and soul to each other for as long as they live, Ram explained. "You see, Jack, we believe that the most important traits a person can have are loyalty and fidelity. Without them, nothing else matters. In the past, when a Katai couple married, they made these promises to each other in front of witnesses, fully aware that the price of betrayal would be their own lives." Ram drew the curved, sharp knife from his belt. Jack recoiled at the sight of the blade. "But that's murder," Jack stammered. "Maybe in your culture," Ram replied, "but here, we call it divorce. This sword was given to me on the day we married, as tradition dictates. It's more than just an ornament or trinket to hide behind glass. In my ancestors' time, it was worn by the husband as a sign that he was off limits. It also served as a warning to anyone who might trouble the couple, someone like you, Jack." With that, Ram quickly extended his arm. A crimson line appeared on Jack's neck as his eyes widened in shock, his carotid artery severed. His strength waned, and he began to falter as blood gushed from his neck. As Jack's life ebbed away, Marion struggled to keep from falling off the stone platform. Suddenly, a powerful gust of wind swept them both into the bottomless pit. To control his emotions, Ram closed his eyes briefly. When he opened them again, he threw the knife into the chasm and discarded his wedding ring in the same manner. Behind him, he heard the voice of the court elder and the sound of a gavel. "This divorce is final," the elder declared as the court dispersed. Ram kept his gaze straight ahead until he felt his uncle's hand on his shoulder. He turned to see him standing there. "Did you have feelings for her?" his uncle asked again. "I did," Ram admitted. The elder observed, "She had a chance to escape, but she chose not to take it. In the end, she did the honorable thing." "I suppose she did," Ram said, avoiding further details. "I know this has been the hardest thing you've had to do, my son," the elder said. "Believe me, when you reach my position, it won't get any easier." "My uncle, you will outlive me," Ram declared. "Touché," the elder replied with a chuckle. "Nevertheless, your honor has been restored. Now it's time to mourn what's been lost and move on. By the way, Saika is eagerly awaiting your call. She still loves you and has managed to keep the elders at bay." When asked how much time had passed, Ram inquired, "After all these years?" "In a word, yes," the elder replied, handing Ram a card. "She would make an excellent wife for you, and when the time comes, she'll be an even better queen. I must confess, I've always wanted to have a real doctor among my kin." The last time Ram had spoken to Saika, she had been attending medical school and completing her residency in the United States. "Now, please give the girl your number and tell her to call you, and make it clear that I'm not her answering service," the king said with a smile. Ram laughed and said, "Thank you, uncle." He returned the smile. "Of course, I'll take care of it." The elder smiled in satisfaction, patted Ram on the shoulder, and left. Ram removed his robe and put on his sleeping bag, reflecting on Marion as he sat down. He walked down the steps to his car. After wiping his eyes, he got into the vehicle, retrieved his phone, and saw that he had a strong signal. He dialed the number his uncle had provided. "Cha," said a lovely female voice after the first ring. He thought back to his old self and remembered the beautiful, voluptuous, dark-haired woman he had loved before he met Marion. "Cha," he replied. "The divorce is final." "Good," she said. "Now, please come back home to the one who loved you first, Ram. I've missed you so much." "I'm on my way," he said. Perhaps there's something special about first love, he thought.